From Wakefield, it's the Nolan Car Night Show starring Nolan. Langello and Nolan's guest returning back to the show this week, Rosie Langello. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Nolan. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the show. And joining me is a fan favorite guest. I hear it all the time about how much enjoyed the people enjoyed this episode and this guest. So I said, might as well bring this person back. She's on to bigger and better things, another part of the country. She's the one and only, the incomparable, the very talented Rosie Langello. Rosie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Nolan. How are you?
It's Sunday, so obviously not as fun as Friday, but we're getting close to graduation, so can't complain about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus it's springtime and it's getting warmer, though I'm sure down in Alabama it's a little warmer than it is in South Kingstown.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I don't think it's 46 degrees down there tonight.
It was the other night. What was it, Cody? Like 30 degrees?
38.
It was like 38 degrees the other night, which is crazy. It was chilly yesterday, but it was, during the day, it's beautiful. So
I'm on the club tennis team at URI, and we had a match in West Haven, Connecticut against University of New Haven. And as the weather went a little colder, it did get a little colder. And I was like, Get me out here, but that's life. And as a sports reporter like yourself, you know all about that those adventures in the cold weather.
Yeah.
As I said in my introduction, you're into bigger and better things. You're obviously no longer in Rhode Island. You are down south. So for you, since we last talked, you were at WPRI, and now you're in Alabama. What's it been like for you since you got there?
It's been all gas, no brakes, and sometimes I hate using that, but it's true. And that's kind of what I like about our job is you're always on the go. And that's, as soon as I got down here, Auburn, the basketball team was, they won the SEC regular season title. They were winning. And then we went right into March Madness. And it was all just gas. It was a little hard at first just to get the local stuff down in Montgomery because I was either following the team or going to the game. And we also started during playoff basketball for high school basketball. So I was still getting to know all the teams and trying to introduce myself to people. And my weekend guy started about like 2 weeks after me. So it was just me for a period of time. And then he started and it was, it's great. But it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy Alabama and I really, really like it down south too.
And you mentioned it, sports and the success that Auburn has had in the playoffs, and I want to get to that. But besides, as it's known how well done and how successful Southern football is, and that obvious thing, what's been the biggest adjustment for you besides obviously the area moving to there?
I think the biggest adjustment would be being a sports director because I've never been a sports director before. I've always been a number 3, as they would call it, which I hate that term. I hate that we label people as a 1, 2, and 3. You're just a sports reporter, you're a weekend sports anchor, you're a sports director. There's, you know what I mean? I don't think we should use numbers. But I think that's the biggest adjustment just because, you're a manager now too. So you're making schedules for another person. So I think that's the biggest adjustment. Other than that, the football is bigger and it's better down here. And that's really another big reason why I came down here is because I wanted to get involved in the SEC. I've covered Big Ten college football up covering Penn State and obviously covered the pros up with the Patriots. And I was like, I really enjoy college football. Why am I not covering it? And I always said, I'm going to go down south. I want to cover Texas high school football one day. And I still do to this day. But now I'm in Alabama and we have a Friday Night Fever show that people absolutely love. It's been around for years. It's like a legendary show. People talk about it all the time. So I was like, yeah, this seems like the right fit because I love high school football too. So yeah, kind of went off of your question there, but yeah, being a sports director is definitely different from just being, that number 3, which what I was in Rhode Island.
Speaking of that, that's sort of really what I wanted to really ask you about. Sports director, you're coming into an area or a new station where you're not there as long as the others there who now you're the director for. Mm-hmm. How do you manage that? Because you're, like I said, the new person, but then you're also in charge of these people who've been there long for you. Was that something that was easy for you to change, or was it something that you sort of had to learn as it went on?
Yeah, I'm still learning as I go now. The sports directors that came before me were all, either from or been here for a while or were in that weekend sports anchor role, or just in the area for a while. So they took a chance on me because they knew I was from out of the area, but they knew I had the experience. And luckily for me, my weekend sports anchor is from Alabama. And he was just a sports reporter up in, I think it was North Dakota or South Dakota. I always get them mixed up. I forget which one it was. But he is from Alabama, knows the area really well. So it kind of works out because he's helping me learn. And so are the other sports directors because they're still in this market too. Montgomery he lives like just down the street honestly from the station. So he's been very helpful. There's another guy, Jeff Shearer, who works for Auburn, and they've been very helpful too. And everyone at the station has been there for a really long time. So no one is really letting me just fail. Everyone's like, hey, this is important. Hey, we want you to cover this. We do this every year. So you work as a team and people understand. The people down South have been so incredibly kind. And that's one thing that I've loved is that if I miss something or if I pronounce something wrong, I'll get an email saying, hey, you pronounced this wrong, or hey, you should cover this next time. By the way, we go to this church. Please come by on Sunday. They always end it with something super sweet. And I'm just not used to that for being up north. So yeah, I think I'm just still learning as I go, but the viewers here have been very, very patient.
Well, being from Rhode Island, I'm not accustomed to the large grandeur that is big time college sports, or even big time high school sports. I know, tennis was big in South Kingstown, but that's not compared to college basketball or high school football, stuff like that. So from you going from Pennsylvania, then to Rhode Island to now here, where high school sports is at almost the same level as college sports, how is that dealing with that first? Because I'm sure that was very scary.
Yeah. Well, in Pennsylvania, I got a really good taste of high school football and just, how much people care about in the local community, how much it's still relevant in local news, and still in Rhode Island. I mean, we had a great blitz show that we ran on Friday nights, and, the high school football in Rhode Island is very good too. A lot of coaches, not to name drop, Stanley Dunbar is doing a great things with kids in that area to make Rhode Island football. Well, it's great now, but he's even improving on it with his, breakthrough football academy that he has. So I had that taste there. And then down here, I'm not in high school football season yet. We're now in everyone's getting a new coach, or new coaches are being hired, or coaches are, trading schools, whatever. So I'm just going to have to roll with it, but I've done it before. I've jumped into every sports reporter job that I've had at the beginning of football season. So now that I, hear months before it's happening, it gives me a huge advantage. Just getting to know the area, getting to know the coaches, and getting to know which teams. And we'll do high school football previews once the season starts. Just so we get a feel of who everyone is too. And like I said, the viewers are very patient. So we're learning and they're learning about us too. So it's been a good mix.
I'm curious for you, from your perspective, covering Auburn football and then, or maybe basketball, at least since it was just recently, right as they're all successful, right as they're going off on a high note, and you're jumping in right as all this is happening. Is that something where you kind of just have to disregard that and just, let it all happen, let the wave crash over you to, just do the story?
Yeah. So once I knew I had the job, I kind of had a month left in Rhode Island. So I was kind of checking in on what Auburn and Alabama was doing too, because they were doing good. They made the tournament too. And we cover both programs. So, I was just paying attention in the back of my mind because I was I knew as soon as I got down here, that was the lead in all my shows was going to be Auburn because they were number one in the country at the time. Alabama was still getting ranked every, week or so in the top 25 or just around there. So I just kind of was all right, on my way down, I'm really going to study the teams and just make sure that when I do jump in, I know what I'm talking about and things like that. Honestly, once I watch a basketball game once, I get to know the players and things like that. And kind of I know who everyone is. Now I just kind of have to learn, Bruce Pearl's offense and what he likes to do and just his mannerisms and things
Sure.
like that. Same with Nate Oates and things like that too. So I think it just came with experience, just kind of jumping right in. I'm just so used to doing that
Sure.
that I kind of just didn't have too much of a struggle with it.
It kind of jumps back to the responsibilities that you have as a sports director, and I may have asked you this back when you were still in Rhode Island, and I've asked this to some of your other former Rhode Island colleagues. In your position, being an anchor, being now in the professional world for however long you've been in it, you have an expectation, you have these eyeballs all on you compared to someone in college doing it for the sports department for Harrington School. But now that you're the sports director, are the eyeballs, more closer on you now that you have a bigger role and bigger piece in things?
Yeah, I think so, because now I'm on air every single day, where in my previous jobs, I was on air maybe twice or three times a week. So you didn't have all those eyes constantly. And WSFA is a legacy station. I mean, people watch and have watched through and through for a number of years. Like, we're one of the most watched NBC stations in the country.
Wow.
In Montgomery, Alabama, of all places, but people love WSFA. I mean, you take your car down the road, people will honk and say hi anywhere. You are recognized everywhere here. It's incredible. So yeah, it comes with a very big responsibility, and you always know that eyes are watching. And it's funny, like, market wise, I think this is like 128, I want to say, but it doesn't feel like a small market whatsoever, because of the amount of eyes that are always on you. Like, I'll have an email almost every day I do a sports cast, like, hey, I liked this, or hey, you should go cover that. You know what I mean? Just suggesting things. So I know people are watching. Like, we have a very big, I can't think of the word right now. We cover a lot of counties down here, and it's just different from Rhode Island because, like, the whole state watches, because Rhode Island is so tiny. Rhode Island is just like it's like two counties here in Alabama. So it's just like a different mindset. And you just have to be on every single day. So you got to, just be prepared to be on TV every day.
Now, you mentioning that you cover both, Alabama and Auburn. I want to ask you an Alabama question, and it's sort of a thing that, most sports people know about, and it's the postseason superstition connection between the Patriots and the Crimson Tide. Seeing that you cover Alabama sports, and now I'm sure you'll be covering more Alabama as the more time you spend down there. Do you believe in that superstition where if Alabama loses, then the Patriots win, or vice versa?
No, I don't. I don't believe in that at all. But it was, I didn't go to pro day, but my weekend sports anchor did. And Bill Belichick was there, obviously. And Mac Wilson, he is from Montgomery. He was just traded to the Patriots, played at Alabama, and now he's going up to New England, used to play in Cleveland. And, I was asking him, I was like, how cool is it that you get to go play with like all your former teammates? And he was like, oh, it's great. Mac Jones texted me when he found out the news and stuff like that. And, he knows who the Patriots are. I was asking him like who he kind of looked up to. And he said, Devin McCourty, and Dante Hightower, and just like, and other former Alabama guys too. And he was just like, I'm excited to get up there. But to answer your question, no, but it's cool to see the connections and kind of just be like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so used to be, up in New England. They used to play at Alabama, because that connection is very real, but I don't think the superstition is.
It's a scary thing on how it's happened, but it's, just, the luck of the draw that they've been able to do certain things at a certain time. Speaking of legendary coaches, and in the NBA a few weeks ago, Greg Popovich had broken whoever the number one coach was record for all-time wins, and he's been there a long time, as Nick Saban has been in Alabama. Being that you're down there, you're covering sports, like I've mentioned, how long do you see him coaching, seeing as Auburn's coaches, hasn't been there as long?
Yeah.
How long do you see him coaching before he sort of, says, okay, enough's enough. I've been as successful as I can be?
Well, I think that we're getting the best season because they just lost to Georgia. So this is a revenge season, right? So he's going to do whatever it takes to win. I mean, it would be great if they went on another run and got to the national championship. Saban's not going to leave being beaten. There's just no way. I don't know. I can't really answer that question. to be honest with you. I mean, I know he has grandkids now. I know he's
Sure.
obviously much older and things like that. But what I do know is that he's not going to leave on a loss.
Sure.
And I personally wouldn't either. As far as Brian Harsin goes, this is a huge year for him after going 6-7 last season and everything that, a little bit of a turmoil there in the off season. This is a huge year for him to prove to the fans and the boosters and the community, like, hey, I'm here. I was the right choice. This is who I brought in, and this is what we're going to do with the program. They're in the middle of, a quarterback competition right now with 4 guys. So that's just something to watch going forward. And it makes, covering that team really exciting. And it just the Harsin storyline too is just what is he going to do with that program? And, what if he turns it around? It's going to be an interesting season to watch. We cover, just because we're closer to Auburn,
Sure.
we can get there easier. And there's a lot of great stations in Alabama that we all help each other out. So I hope to get up to Tuscaloosa for like very big games and things like that. But we should be at Auburn every week because it's about 40 minutes from the station. Yeah.
And that brings up another question I want to ask. Being that, after, they're historic, that one play that they have where they return it for a touchdown and they win it against the other team, and the success that they had this year, whether it be sports in general with basketball and the prestige that program has since you joined there, but over the numerous years, does it give you more pride to be able to cover a team like that, especially coming from, Rhode Island where you are, although their football has done somewhat decent a little bit, but not to the level that Auburn has? Does it give you, a pride to be able to cover this team?
I don't know if I would say pride, but I would say I'm grateful to cover, college football in the SEC. I think that's just really, really cool within itself. I mean, they call it, I think what's the saying? It just means more. And I think it does, but the Big Ten was great too. Like covering Big Ten football was awesome. And, even covering URI and Bryant was great too. So I think not so much pride, but just being grateful that I do get to do what I do and cover these big time programs, because there's nothing like a college football game on a Saturday afternoon. And I feel like I'm one of the few people that really, I really enjoy being down on the field filming college football. It's one of my favorite things to do. I loved doing it at Penn State, just being on the sidelines, being in the atmosphere. I know people like to watch from up above, and I loved watching the Patriots from up above. I really did enjoy that, but there's just something about being on the sidelines, being in the action that I'm like, wow, this is cool. This is what I get to do for a living.
You've mentioned it tonight, the covering big time football, and then you mentioned it. You want to cover at some point Texas high school football as well. And what at the time you have right now, currently in Alabama, covering Auburn and the other programs, what do you hope to accomplish in this role as a sports director?
Well, I really like to start doing pregame and postgame shows here with the college football, because there's just so much of it. And it's not just Alabama and Auburn. We have a lot of other schools in the area. We have Faulkner, Huntington, Tuskegee. We have so much college football here in Montgomery to be covered. And even in Troy, oh my gosh, how could I forget Troy? Troy is a great program to cover too. They're just a little more south of us, but there's just so much to cover here that I'm like, all right, we could do a show every week. If I had a little more help, why not? Because viewers love Troy, they love Huntington, they love their college football here. So I would really hope to maybe one day accomplish and just establish a pregame show every week that we just get to talk about college football, right? And I just think that I just hope people believe in me and know that I'm going to deliver them, the best coverage that we possibly can, that me and Jamal can possibly, give them every single week.
Sure.
Haven't really thought about the big time goals yet, just because we're still getting in the groove of things. Now that, we're not in college basketball season, we're finally getting into a pattern of how we can cover the local stuff. So we're just getting into that. We have biscuit season that starts on Tuesday, and that's huge around here too. They're the AA affiliate for the Tampa Bay Rays, and they're in Montgomery downtown. It's a great organization. They love WSFA, and it'll be fun. So there's a lot of things to do here, and they're giving me, a free for all. I'm doing a college football coaches series that I just started, and we're going to release on a digital platform and a shorter version on air. So there's a lot of things in the works.
Sure.
It's just, how are we going to do it? And my news director is always like, don't take on too much. Like, take your time. You have a lot of years here. And he's right. I just know that I'm like, all right, I want to go, 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 go. So hopefully over time we can establish a lot.
Well, I hope that you're able to, really set your mark there and really set a new standard of how things should be done down there. The last thing I want to end with is a little segment called This or That. So in this is where I thought a few things similar to the one word challenge where they have some connection to you and you just choose either this or that. So are you ready?
Okay.
Now this one may be redundant, but Auburn or Alabama?
I can't say. I knew you were going to ask me that, and I will not answer it.
Joe Namath or Cam Newton?
Cam Newton.
One more Alabama CFP title or a Patriots Super Bowl win?
Alabama CFP. Yeah.
Alabama Coast or Island Coast?
Oh, well, I haven't been down to the Gulf yet, so I can't answer that. But beautiful beaches down there from what I've seen in pictures. Love the Rhode Island coast, though. Absolutely love it. So I'll pick it for now.
Alabama high school sports or Rhode Island college sports?
Alabama high school sports.
And then last but certainly not least, Brian Harsin or Bruce Pearl?
I can't say that one either.
Well, down the road, if you make it to Texas, which I'm sure one day you'll be covering high school sports, I'll ask you that again so that you don't have to have a biased answer. Well, Rosie, as I said before, and as I said while we were texting about doing this, I thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, of course. And, as I said, people are a fan favorite. My mother, from time to time will say how much she enjoyed the last time and how much of a wonderful person you were. So this was a favorite one. So she'll be excited to see this, but I thank you for your time. I'm happy to see that you're doing so well down there and that you're doing a fine job. Although I have no way of watching Montgomery television from Rhode Island, but if I could, I'm sure that would be on in my household. And I'll be looking forward to doing this again when something big happens or when you make it over to Texas.
Of course, Nolan. Thank you so much. Of course.
Well, for those out there who want more news, updates, and information like that, follow on Twitter, Nolan Carr Night, and on Instagram, Nolan Carr at Night Show. And subscribe, like, comment, share, follow up, fun stuff, because down the road, you're looking at this 10 years from now. I usually say Joe Rogan size, but I can't say that anymore. Tune in and say, holy crap, this was amazing. Again, episode 2 with Rosie Langello. And until then, see you next time. In the words of Johnny Carson, I bid you a heartfelt good night.